I'd like to introduce Garry Runyon. He's done some presentations for us before and has always done really good, interesting stuff. In fact, I'm speechless. Let's just turn it over here. Thanks, sir.
So full disclosure, this talk is really more about products that are available for sharpening, particularly Japanese tools. Is there anybody here that uses Japanese tools? I'm the only sucker. Oh, great. And really hand planes more than chisels. Chisels are a little easier to sharpen. Full saws, yeah, they work great. So I'll do a little bit of side sharpening down into it. But before that, realize I'm not trying to convince anybody this is what you need to switch to. If you've got a sharpening system that you like, man, just stick with it. But for those that are having trouble with what they have or they're looking for something that will improve their sharpening, I offer my advice on these after many years of playing around with it. So, sort of a history. About 1988, I bought a Japanese hand plane because I saw pictures of these Gossamer shavings and all that. And I'm going to tell you, tuned up, it works better than any hand plane I have. But there's a long process to get to there and a learning curve, and I'm still learning. So I bought this plane in 1988, let it sit for a month or two, tuned it up, had some water stones, generic water stones up to about 8,000 grit, sharpened it up, felt like it was a razor sharp, worked terrible. Couldn't get it to take a decent shaving, it chattered, and I'm going, what am I doing wrong? So I piddled with it for months and finally got fed up, and I thought, well, maybe I need to actually buy a Japanese water stone, a natural water stone. So I talked to a world-renowned sword maker friend of mine because he polishes swords with stones and all that, and said, hey, Don, what do you recommend? Can you get me a decent Japanese water stone? And his comment was, don't bother. He said, because they pick all the good stones out before they sell them overseas. And you'll get a stone that's got kind of random large grains in it, and you'll keep getting scratches in it. But Norton had just come out with their line of water stones. So he recommended I try a Norton stone. So I bought a 4,000, 8,000 grit Norton water stone, got it in the shop, pulled the blade out, did nothing to it other than resharpen it, put it back together, and it worked beautifully. So I don't know why, but the type of stone that you use, at least on Japanese hand planes, makes a difference in the performance of the plane. The chisels work fine. My Western style hand planes, they work fine with those stones, but that would not. So I lived with Norton water stones until about 2000. And when I was at the Blade Show in 2000, Harrelson Stanley, who's sort of a sharpening guru, had a booth, and he was showing how to sharpen Japanese planes and knives using the Sharpening water stones. And so I got talking to him, and he sort of walked me through this, and he was pushing side sharpening. So most of what I've learned from him. And so I bought some of the Sharpening water stones, and I'm going to tell you that they're the fastest, hardest cutting stones on the market today. And anything else is going to cut slower. And when you get to, if you want to advance that, if you want to look at the difference, the Japanese use a thick blade, laminated, and you can see the size of the belly. So you got a lot of metal to remove. Plus the blade is 64 plus rubber, a lot harder than a Western style, which you're losing usually 58 to 62 and thinner. So you got less metal to remove. So the combination of those two makes a lot of stones not very functional. You're there for a long time. But they're soft. So you have to deal with keeping them flat. And that's one. So, this is what I consider properties of a good sharpening system. A grinder with a good tool rest, so you can regrind them. Now, you don't regrind these puppies. They're 150 to 300 bucks for a blade. And to take the temper out of it is not going to make life very good for you.
What about like a water
You could use one, but again,
format or something like that?
the Japanese tools use a flat bevel because that no hollow ground, because that cutting edge is so hard. You need all the metal you can to support it to keep it from chipping out. Okay, whereas a Western is softer, and you can get away with a hollow ground. And I use them all the time. Now I don't grind all the way to the edge unless I have a nick in it. I don't grind to the edge because these stones cut so fast, I don't need to. And where you're going to burn it is that very last cut when you're getting the blade so thin. And so I grind the middle out, and I stop there because it's just not worth the time and effort of having to burn the blade, and then you got to grind it all the way back. Okay? So I use ceramic water stones. They're not the old style. You don't soak them in water. They're splash and go. So it gets much more convenient than the ones you have to keep in water all the time.
So that's not, excuse me, so that's not diamond water.
It's a ceramic, what they call a ceramic water stone versus a regular water stone. It would be one that's very porous and soft, and you have to keep it in water.
They have diamond stones out there too, right?
Yeah, well, those are different. Those are for something else. The Nortons are water stones. You have to soak them, and they're quite soft. These are a lot harder than those. So, given all that, you have to keep it flat because they're soft. I want an abrasive that cuts fast. I use side sharpening versus back and forth. So I'm calling back and forth like this. Side sharpening is like this. And I'll go into why I think it's easier to use. Joint the edge. Now, this is counterintuitive. You're going to all, and this is Harrelson idea. You're all going to think I'm crazy, but at the very end, I actually drag that blade across, and then I quite often, because I don't have a light enough touch as he does, I end up resharpening on a 30,000 stone. Okay, there's a reason for it. I think it works. I don't do it all the time, but if I get into a piece of wood that's got knots and stuff where the blade chips out a bit, doing that gives you a more robust blade, I think. And then I use a sharpening jig, and I use one that does side sharpening. It's the only one on the market, and I'll get into that. So, going back, what I've already talked about, the Western style uses a hollow bevel grind, whereas you want a flat bevel for the Japanese. So, first step, you get a tool. The thing you always do is you lap the back of the tool. And it's the most important and easiest. And unfortunately, it requires a full set of stones. All right? To flatten and polish the back, you can't get away with shortcuts. You really have to get 1,000, 4,000, 8,000, 12,000 grit, or however far you want to go. Whereas there are some tricks when you sharpen the bevel that you really only need a diamond stone and a finished stone that you use. So, and then joining the edge, regrinding when necessary. Okay. So, consequences of a stone that's not flat, and I'm probably telling you things you already know, I'm sure. Convex stones produce a hollow when you're trying to flatten the back, and if you're doing the bevel. And I've never seen a convex stone. They always wear, hollow, so concave. So if you have a concave stone, you end up rounding the outside edges, and then you go to your next stone, which is harder, and you polish it, and you see these two outer edges that are still unpolished. Okay, well that takes time, and I can go in and take a scratch tool and in 5 minutes I can have a mirror finish on it. Assuming the modern steels are ground much better than the older ones used to be. So you take a Wood River or Stanley or any of the slightly more expensive hand planes out there, you can get them flat pretty quick. So, next. So, how do you flatten it? You can rub two stones together. And that works, but it's slow, and I always worry about cross-contamination. You can use carborundum and glass plate, and it's just kind of messy, and it takes one more apparatus that you have to have. You can put sandpaper on a flat substrate. Doesn't last very long. You're continually peeling off and putting things down. So I use diamond plates. So this is what's available out there right now. Back when I started this, the Sharpening diamond glass line, this was the only one out there that was dead flat. Flat within 5 microns, more than you really need. Okay, $370 now. Used to be, I think I bought mine for $170 or something like that, and it's just about worn out. No, works very well, but it's too expensive. Then KMT came out with the diaphragm. The first one was 120 grit, very coarse, which I bought because it was one of the few ones out there, and I use it for my lower grit stones. I don't use it on my 8,000 and above. I use the diamond one, glass line. It's about 180. It comes with a 160 grit now, which is what I would recommend if you decide to buy one. I should have also mentioned that this system is not cheap. Trend. They sell this combination 300 grit, 1,000 grit. You can't use the 1,000. There's so much surface tension it just locks on tight and you can't move it. So only the 300 will work, but it works well. And it's flat to within, I don't know, 5/10 thousandths or something like that, which is pretty much all you need. You can use 1,000. Instead of buying a 1,000 grit water stone, you can use 1,000 as a replacement for that. And it cuts very quick. And then Harrelson Stanley, a friend of mine, used to be the president of Sharpening USA. And had some issues, and he left that and started his own company called Nano. And he's just come out with a line of diamond flattening plates. This is an NL5. It's about 180 bucks. I haven't really had time. I picked it up at the Blade Show because he gave me the deal. Haven't had time to evaluate it. His story is that these things cut on the edges and hardly cut at all on the flats. And so he's tried to make a stone with as many edges as he can. And I've used it one time and it seems to work pretty well. So those are your options. If I was going to recommend one, I'd buy the cheapest one you can. And I think they'll last quite a while.
But those never touch the blade, right? Those are stones.
All of these I never use for the blade. This one I would use 1,000. And I would probably use the 300 if I had a really big yeah, if I had it on a Western style blade, I'd grind it out on a grinder. But on the Japanese stones, I would probably use the 300. And I've got a 500 shaft. So next. So trend would be the one I would recommend if you decide to go that route. So I've already told you the Sharpening. They got a full line from about 300 grit up to 30,000. And I've heard there's some stones out there that are 50,000.
Is that on float glass?
It is on glass, yeah, which supports it, and you can see it's starting to get thin. This is a 16,000 grit. They cut fast. They're 10 times faster than an Arkansas stone, and faster than the Nortons, and they're the hardest stone out there, so you don't have to flatten them quite as often. There's another Sharpening brand called a Kuramako. A little bit less expensive, not a glass line. It was actually a professional stone that was intended to only be sold in Japan. And they started bringing them over here. I've got an 8,000 and 12,000 grit, and they cut a little slower. But again, they're a ceramic, you don't have to soak them in water, and they seem to do quite well.
So these are basically all man-made.
All
natural
man-made.
stuff.
I've got, well,
Other than.
I have one natural stone. And when I first got it was like 110 bucks, and I took a chance on it. And when I first got it, it had big scratches when I used it. And I resurfaced it with the diamond, and it went away. And it doesn't leave as polished a surface, but the chisels, I've used it on, and they got a great edge. I can see why if you got a really good if you could find a good Japanese stone and not pay $700, $800, $900 for it, where you can grow to love it. But I'm not willing to. I've already spent more money than I should have been. Don't tell my wife all this. So the other thing we need is called a Nagura stone. It's kind of a chalky stone. This is a natural stone, and you use it to take your glaze off. So if you flatten this out when you're through and put it away, come back in a week, it'll cut quicker and you'll get a better edge if you rub it all over and develop a slurry on this using the Nagura stone. And this one I use for all the stones. Now, I don't know, I think on the Japanese natural stones, there's different varieties of this that work better for some types of stones than others, but I haven't gotten into that much. And then finally, this is a 6,000 grit nano home that Harrelson's come out with. That's the finest one. He's working on a diamond stone that's a 15,000 grit, and it's only about 1/8 of an inch thick without the backing. And I think once he gets that patented, he'll be coming out, and that could be an interesting stone for you to find in the Sharpening. So, all right, next. So, side charting. Let me demonstrate side charting. I did a study for Harrelson back 10, 12 years ago. And I had 4 A2 Lee Nielsen blades. And I did 4 series. I had a jig that went back and forth. I had that series. I had one where I jointed the edge every time. And then I had the same thing with the side sharpening, where I side sharpened the blade on one series and then I side sharpened and jointed. And photographed those under 500 to 1,000x. And at the end of the day, the side sharpened jointed edge had the fewer defects. Now, given all that, I can't say that any of those blades would outperform the other. Because by the time I got to 30,000x, they were all deadly sharp. But one thing I did learn is this thing where you rub the back of it to get rid of the burr. Well, it never gets rid of the entire burr. There's always some burr left.
I mean, you saw that under the extreme magnification, but did you feel it?
You couldn't feel it. We're talking 1,000x. You can see a burr in places. So it's effective but not totally. And I think that's where the joining gets rid of all of that. And I think that's why it makes a little better edge, if you're willing to spend the time. And truthfully, I don't. I use it sparingly when I need to, because it's an extra step. And when I'm sharpening, I should be able to go, if I don't have a nick, I can take one of these Japanese blades, and in 3 or 4 minutes, it'll be razor sharp, ready to go. It takes you longer to flatten the stone than it does to sharpen. So, anyway, side sharpening. probably all doing this.
I got a special mixture there, I see you got the bottle of.
This is special aqua tap.
That's the green stone.
This is a Madura stone. This is a 16,000 shaft. So, Japanese plane, you probably, if you hand sharpen, you're probably going like this, right? A lot of you back and forth. You probably don't go like, it's almost impossible to hold an edge going like that. But you probably go like that. And that's good for the thin blades because that effectively makes that bevel wider and makes it easier for you to hold that bevel, okay? These, you don't have to do that. I've already got 5/8 of an inch of a bevel there. And so you lock it in with the bevel with your right hand and you push with your left. And this is basically what I did. And that's done. Wow. Okay? And you can see the metal that came off with the 16,000. So if that was a 500 or 1,000, it'd be black. And so that's what I want. The longer you're on that stone, the more chance you have of rocking that bevel. And so I want to cut as fast as I can and still give me a good edge. And this is I've actually knocked it down because I had a 30,000 grit edge on it before. And I won't pass it around because if anybody makes the wrong move. And it's been used, I can feel a few little nicks on it. But basically that's it. There's not much to it. It's just that it's more ergonomic. You can hold your bevel, and with the right stones, you're not there very long. And when it comes to fine woodworking, it all starts here.
Can you do that with chisels?
Yeah, same thing with chisels.
Never
Yeah, now I use the only side sharpening jig out there, and it basically goes like this. And it's got rollers on it, and it rolls back and forth. And I use it if I need a plain blade that's dead flat all the way across. Even though you can press on outer edges to get it rounded over if you want to, while it's in the jig. And then I have some Japanese chisels that are an 1/8 inch, 3/16, 16th of an inch thick or wide. And I can't hold them. I just can't hold them. They rock so much you can't hold them, and so I use the jig for that. And I mainly use those for setting up a hand plane. Because you have to go in there, when you first get it, it's like a kit. You have to let it season so it dries, and then you have to scrape the bottom to let that blade ride in. They're elegant tools. You know, they got a notch cut in there. The blade is tapered. The blade also has a very slight curve on it. So when you lock it into place, you put that whole blade under compression. Yeah. And you only sharpen the back, you only flatten the back one time. Because if you take metal off of there, then it gets thinner and then it extends further up. Okay? So other than just taking the burr off, that back never sees a stone. And eventually you can see it's hollow ground. You will get to the point where you run out of edge. And then your life becomes really interesting because now you have to put it on an anvil and hammer it on the edge to re-bend that blade back out, and then you re-lap it again to get the edge.
That'd be an interesting demonstration for September.
I'm not. I don't have to work that hard where I have to wear a blade up to that point. And I have had to do it.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm scared to death of what it does because essentially if you crack it, you just because you'll not find another blade that'll match perfectly to the body.
And since that's seasoned and you tuned it.
Well, and
start
the
over.
chance that you could get one to work if it was a bit bigger,
Yeah.
you could probably, you know, finesse it in where it would work, but if it's not, then you're out of luck. So basically, flattening the back, you need a 5,000 or a 500 grit to take nicks out. If you got an old plank that's got pitch, you may need that. So I would go 500, 1,000. If you buy the trend line, you can don't have to get that. You can go 4,000, 8,000. You can stop there, or you can go to a 12,000 Kuramako, whatever they call it, Shafting, or you can get a 16,000. And I'll make a note that Woodcraft has a sale on those. They're normally $149 and they're $99 now for the 16,000. And that's getting close to the price for this Kuramako style 12,000. So I would recommend, if you had an interest, buy this one.
Which one was on sale?
The 16,000 grit Shafting glass line.
Only the 16,000?
Only 16,000.
That's good to do the July.
End of July, yeah. So, next.
Paid sponsorship by Woodcraft?
Sponsored by Woodcraft. Now, I'm gonna tell you, don't buy your stones normally at Woodcraft. I've given them tens of thousands of dollars, but you can get a better deal on Amazon for either one of them. All right, so I think if you bought the 12,000 at Woodcraft, it's probably 113 or something, and you can find it in one of the Amazon stores for like 85. Okay, so if you want to save money, that's a good compromise, is to buy this brand.
That 8,000?
Hmm?
That 8,000?
Yeah, the Kuramako 8,000.
$60.
Yeah, no, but the 12,000 I think is about 89 or something. It's been a while since I bought it, so I don't know what the price is. They're always cheaper than the Shafting glass one. So, all right. Jointed. Counterintuitive. So basically, Harrison was showing me this, and I was just like, why would you do that? But he takes it like that, and he takes the feather stroke. And if he's having more burrs, then he'll actually take that stone and raise it up slightly at the very end, the last stone that he uses. And that puts a very gentle convex edge on and makes it a little more robust.
So even less than the weight of the blade?
Yeah, you just, 50% of the time, I'm too heavy and I end up having to go back and resharpen on the 30,000 grit. But usually it's fine enough, you can get by on the 30,000. So where I use it, when I grind a blade, the burr from the grinder is a huge amount of damage in that steel. If you were to look at it under a microscope, you've got, man, this has just destroyed it. So what I do, instead of leaving it on the stones and letting it come off when I pull the back on it, I take it off. I want those burrs gone. I don't want them sitting on the stone. So I'll joint the edge if I'm right off the grinder, and I'll put a thin line, and then I'll grind down to that. Because again, these stones cut quick. It just doesn't take that long, and then you know all that damage is gone. And from there on, you've got a good edge to work with. You don't have to do that. I'm just compulsive. And then I don't know if there's anything else. So, accessories. All right. If you don't have a sink, where are we at? First one. Sharpening pond. Shafting makes one of these. They're like $150 or something. They work great if you got a bench and you're afraid of the water getting everywhere. They work great, and when I bought it, it was $110 or something like that.
Is that mostly for those water stones that need?
Yeah. If you had like Arkansas stones, you'd have no use for it. use water stones, it helps. And if you don't have a sink, now I've got a sink in the countertop and I don't use it at all. If somebody wanted to buy it, I'd give it a deal. Stone board.
$2 right now.
Yeah, I don't think that'll cut it.
I'll give you three.
Shafton's glass line stone board. Rock solid. Locks in. I think Harrelson's will fit it. The natural one, of course, won't. But most of the water stones out there will fit this holder, and it's excellent.
Are they standard size? Is that why?
Yeah, they're, I don't know, 210 millimeters or something like that. And it just happens that Woodcraft has a sale on those. They're normally 116 and they're 76 now
For what?
for this holder.
And I'll hold your $99 stone in?
Yeah, so hold all the Shafton line and almost all the water stones that I've used. The King brand and all those, they'll all fit in there. And you really need something to hold it. Now, you can go to a rubber mat. You know, you don't have to have that, but it locks it down solid. You see me use the garden sprayer. If you don't have access to water, I used that for years before I got the sink in. Marker. I always coat the back of the thing when I'm, the tool when I'm flattening to see where my high and low are. I do it on my bevels. Make sure when I lock in, I'll look at it just to make sure I've got a flat bevel or I'm hitting the bevel right in where I want to. So I do that almost every time. And then our eyes are getting old. And you can't see even if you got young eyes as well as a 10x opera. And I always use that. I always inspect the blade with that while I'm sharpening. And finally, I've gone over the jig.
Made by Nano.
Yeah, well, the Nanohone, it used to be Harrison Stanley, it used to be HMS. That's this one here. And they used to be like 350. He had a landing thing somewhere hiding. A landing plate where you could set the angle up on it if you wanted to. I think now, it's just last month, we dropped that down to 150. And I don't know if it comes with this or not, and I never use this anyway.
Do you use this much?
I-
Other than just for the really small shit?
Again, when I first get a Japanese plane, I'll sharpen it using this. So I know that it's dead flat, and then I'll modify it from there. So I use it one time, unless I've got a big nick or something, and I don't trust myself to be able to hold that angle. Because the angle that comes on it is the one you want to maintain, at least for hardwood. You use softwoods and they make planes that are designed specifically for them. It doesn't matter if they cut any of it.
But isn't that also kind of determined by the plane itself?
That plane was designed for hardwoods. I've got another one, which is actually the one I first bought, which was like $400, and that was on sale. And it was made by one of the living jewels of Japan, but the best knife maker, or best plane maker in Japan. And it's blue steel, which is a harder steel. And I use the jig on that. It's maintained, it was designed for curly maple. And so I maintained the angle that the plane maker decided was the best because he's smarter than I am. So, other than that, the only other thing, I think that's it.
Can you explain, I'm sorry, can you explain, maybe this is obvious, why side sharpening is better?
It's better to me because ergonomically you can hold the bevel a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
So doing this, then you can try to do, if you go this way, I'm going to tell you, you're not going to be able to hold the bevel.
What if you're using a jig going the other direction?
If you're using the jig this way, I don't think there's a hill of beans difference, except that you can't use the whole, you know, You
The whole
use
surface.
2/3 of the stone and then you gotta turn it around. And whereas if you do side sharpening, to me anyway, I don't need a jig
Yeah,
for most things.
yeah,
And I can hold that bevel dead on. And again, on the Japanese stones, you want a dead flat
yeah.
bevel.
Okay.
Not that critical
I
for
think that's
West.
what I've been doing wrong with my sharpener. Because I've been trying to do it like this.
You use-
I'm very good.
You may be able to, I can't.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
can't.
hold that.
I can't, I'm a trucker.
So at any point there, like diminishing returns, the higher the stone you get, you're saying you're going for 50,000. Is it making that much of a difference from one level to the other? That is,
I can tell on some woods with the Japanese and other planes, I can tell a difference between an 8,000 and 30,000. All right, properly set up, I can take a Lee Nielsen, and a lot of woods I can cut against the grain and not get any tear out. All right, not all woods. You throw a piece of Osage orange on that. The only way you're gonna do Osage well is if you get your blade set up at a 55 or 60 degree angle. But most woods like cherry or red maple, I can just go in any direction if it's sharp, that Japanese plane, and most of the others. The Japanese are a little better than all that. For whatever reason. The gods are shining on me and my bench is aligned with Stonehenge. The Japanese plane outshines the others, but there's setup time, and they're not cheap.
You find that true with chisels as well? I mean, I get
I
called
don't-
this question.
I've got one Western style chisel, and I've probably got, dovetail chisel, several dovetail chisels and bench chisels, and some paring, which are great paring chisels that are all Japanese. They take a better edge, they hold it longer. The Western one, it will take a great edge, and 5 minutes later I got it resharpened. Whereas the Japanese, I can work all day. You still have to resharpen them depending on what you're doing, but.
So with this, I noticed no straw, so you don't need the, especially
Well,
for 30,000.
If you use anything soft, you're gonna round that edge. And there's no way around it. All right?
So if I'm on a piece of leather,
So,
leather's in the
you know what I use? I take a piece of hard rock maple and I plane a fresh surface and I'll put diamond, like a 1/4 micron or 0 to 1/4 micron diamond on it. And I'll hone with that. And by the time you use a 30,000 grit and hone it, you can throw it under a microscope and just metallurgical to look at. You can see the carbide grains through it and all that stuff. But no, I don't. 30,000, even the 16,000, you really don't need to hone. You got to sharpen it. So
You're not gonna need a straw.
I would go past 16.
so 16 is like where
Yeah.
you're not going to that much.
Again, it depends on what you do. If you're somebody that likes to finish the whole table by hand planing,
It's probably worth
it's probably worth it. But if you're the average guy that planes the edge down because he hates sanding, which is me, I would spend the money. I'd stop at 16 because it's more affordable. That 30,000 is 370 bucks. It's just not. If you're compulsive, it's worth it to me, but I would recommend it.
Who's compulsive in here?
So, have y'all heard of Rob Cosman?
Yes.
All right. Buy-side. I ordered the DVD from him. He called me up personally and thanked me for the order, which just left me up. When he said his name, I was like, oh. He's a very responsible person. He does a YouTube sharpening with 1,000 grit and a 16,000 using a triple bevel. Are you familiar with that? He sharpens a little different. He'll be like this on 1,000 grit trend stone. He likes to trend diamond stone. And he'll do like that for 10 seconds. And then he'll go to a 16,000. And he raises it up slightly and does it for 10 seconds. And then he raises it up 1 or 2 degrees above that and does it for 5 or 10 seconds. And then takes the burr off and takes his shaver and just gossamer with it.
He doesn't do the jointing,
No, he does not.
just turns it over and pulls
Yeah.
it to the wire.
And again,
You gotta have a touch.
yeah, and I don't. I can get it sometimes, and so I kind of question for the normal person whether it really makes sense. It makes sense after the grinder. I highly recommend doing that. But joining it at 16 or 30,000, knowing that half of the time you're going to have to go back, I'm not sure it buys it. And I think the final thing is with these trend line, these diamond stones, they recommend you use this Dora. It's called Nano Right Gold. And you make a solution up with a spray bottle and you use that on your diamond stones to keep it from rusting. I suspect they don't rust at all if you're just using them on water stones, but when you start grinding the steel in, it keeps the particles of steel embedded in there. And I think the rust will actually start destroying it. So anyway, I think that's it. Is I bored you enough?
Man, that's fascinating.
Questions? All right, now you know just how compulsive.
You mentioned King. I'm gonna pick some up at a garage sale. They're, and I kind of got the sense that they're kind of low end, beginner sort of.
You know, they're perfectly fine for most things. I could never get them to work for Japanese handle.
But for a regular, you know,
They work.
family,
Like I said, I'm not trying to change it. If it's working for you, keep on doing it.
I've been using it. I use
They're
it.
just slow.
Oh, I see.
You know, a lot slower than the shaft.
So, you know, it seems weird to me that it can cut fast but be a low grit. You know what I'm saying? I think it's sand, because, you know, you talk about a 16,000 grit or a 30,000 grit that cuts fast. When I think of it like sandpaper, you know, you gotta use 80 grit to really remove that wood.
But you're not removing as much. You know, you've already used the 16,000 grit stone, so you're stepping up, but
Right.
not that much. And because of the abrasive and the resin holding it, they just cut a lot faster. They don't work for carving gouges. I use my Arkansas stones for that. And I used to sell those to people for a long time. But for Japanese stone or chisels and flint, you'll be there a long time. If you get a little nick or something there, you're gonna be there all day. Whereas these water stones cut a lot faster. And these are the fastest. The Nano Homes version is nice, but it doesn't cut as fast. And he may work with his stones and get them up to that point. And he's a sharpening guru. He's sort of what got me going down this path. And he's got a lot of experience. So I've sort of followed along, emptied my wall way off.
So Gary, on the, I used a black marker on the shade area on this blade. You got red there, do you find?
The red I can see.
Red gets sharper.
Yeah, it's a honing aid. I don't know why I use red. Black
Now
would
that it
work.
stands up better for your eyeball or something?
Yeah, no, I think black, like against the white, actually shows up best.
But look at his blade is black too, so, I mean,
I don't think it matters at all.
So
the
you-
yellow ones are really good.
Do you give these slightly closer to the face of the website? It's slightly-
Yeah, talk to Jared. Yes, we'll certainly want to do that. In fact, it's on my laptop, so I can be able to get it.
Any other questions?